I have been guilty of this where I start losing my creativity and just struggle with drawing or painting anything. There were times where even drawing consistently and putting in the time, I would be able to draw and paint, but I felt like everything I do just lacks that creativity piece and it all looks the same. And I'm sure maybe you are feeling this way now or have felt this at some point. So I started thinking about it for myself a lot and trying to figure out what is happening exactly. And I think, figured out the reason was just lack of experimenting and experimentation with anything to do with my art and drawing and painting. I think I was just too afraid to experiment and I started thinking why is that? So I think there are two main reasons why I was afraid of experimentation and maybe you felt the same way. The main reason was, usually when I would experiment, things would look like this. Things wouldn't look great at all. And usually when trying new things and trying to do something new, you could say that it is a failure. The first time you try something, you're obviously not going to be good at it, so it's not going to look good. So it's very easy that after we try experimenting the first time to go just be discouraged and go back to what we know and what we like to do and what we're comfortable with and start doing the same thing over and over again. And this is where our creativity muscle slowly gets weaker and weaker and we feel that nothing is really working. The second reason was that you might think, or I was thinking, that trying or experimenting might be a waste of time. When trying to learn something new, obviously it takes a long time to figure it out and learn it, especially when the result is something that is not good or I can't post online, for example. But like all that time that I put into experimenting and learning this new thing was just wasted. So for this one painting, I decided that I just really wanted to give the time to experiment, and it doesn't matter how long it takes. I just want to try different things and different techniques until I finish this painting, and time shouldn't be really a thing that I would think about. Also, if I fail the first time, I would try it again and again with different methods or the same method that I'm trying to learn until I figure it out. So I've known that some artists try and incorporate 3D into their process and use Blender or any other 3D softwares to start their painting or their setup. So I thought, let me try and learn Blender a little bit and see if I can set up the scene with the lighting before I move on to paintings. Was this necessary for this painting? For sure not. I already had the idea made and the sketch for the idea made, and I could have just started painting over it and start really rendering and getting it done. But I decided to give myself the permission to experiment and learn and take my time with it and just try something different. So before I started this, I didn't know anything about 3D. So I started with learning Blender with the tutorials from the Blender Guru and the Donut tutorial. If you want to learn Blender, this tutorial is great to start and I highly recommend doing it. It took me about a week or so to do the tutorial, to go through it. And by now I have already forgotten a lot of the things that were in the tutorial, and I should probably do the tutorial again. But from what I learned, I was able to do this simple setup in Blender. It took me a while to do it, and I probably didn't do it the right way or the most efficient way, but I got it done anyways. And some might think that this was a waste of time. I really wasted my time doing this, and maybe I did, but I learned a bit about Blender and I learned about 3D, and now I know, in some cases I should be, or I could, incorporate it into my process if I need to. Then I added some lighting and color and materials to some of the things in there. And it took me a while to do all of this and remember how to do it and watch lots of YouTube tutorials. But then eventually the rendering would look something like this. So when this was done, I took the render of the scene and brought it into Photoshop and started drawing and painting the character and slowly started rendering. You can see that my initial sketch of the scene doesn't look too different from the rendering, but I thought, why not try this and learn something new? And as you can see, now the rest of the stuff wasn't too much experimentation, but really trying to blend and get my character into the scene with the right colors and lighting. There was a part of the drawing where I really struggled to figure out, and it was this really small hexagon cube that I needed to add into the painting. It looks very simple, but for some reason I couldn't figure it out, and that really tells me that I need to practice my perspective a little bit more. But anyways, this is where I saw that my experimentation with Blender has already paid off. I just decided to build the cube in Blender in 3D, and then bring it into my painting, place it in the right area, and then just start painting over it and render it. So even though, I lack the skill a little bit in painting or drawing the thing properly in perspective, while I try and learn that and understand that and practice that more, I was able to put it into Blender and bring it into here and start continuing with my painting. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone needs to learn 3D and we all must use Blender in our process. Not at all. What I'm trying to say is that we need to experiment more and more in order to, unlock that creativity and learn things. And be okay with failing when experimenting. It can be as simple as experimenting with adding backgrounds to our painting. I know a lot of people who like to draw characters and portraits really struggle with backgrounds and are worried about ruining the painting. Another example could be to try different process flows, start with grayscale or go straight into color. Sometimes just doing art for the purpose of experimenting and not to make a good final piece to post online. That struggle of I need to have something to post may stop us from experimenting and just thinking that it's a waste of time. If we don't experiment, we won't learn, and our creativity will always be limited to what our skills can do, and we will always limit our output. So don't be afraid of failure, and I'm here to tell everyone that trying out something new and failing at it is not a waste of time. Trying out something new, even if it leads to nothing, is a good thing because you learn something new that you may be able to use up later on in your process. Let me know in the comments if there's any other reasons that you think might be stopping you from experimenting or trying out new things with your art. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.